Well, seniors, graduates, we're glad you're jumping in with us today. I got an opportunity, Laura and I got a chance to go take them out for dinner the other night and just spend some time. 25 of us were together, and so we just spent some time just talking, and we got to present them different Bibles and stuff. If you weren't able to make it the other night, seniors, your stuff is out there on those tables. Make sure you grab that, and there's a Bible there that has a special note in it from me to you personally, and I think this next phase of your life is a big one. It's a big step. It's a big challenge. And as a parent, I remember those moments when my kids were getting ready to move to the next phase, especially when Rachel was going to be a senior. That was a scary year because everything felt like it was the last time we were going to do something together as a family. And then it didn't kick in with the middle two. We were just like, oh yeah, just get out of the house. And then it came around with Abby, our youngest, and it kind of went into that gear again, like, man, this could be the last time. This could be the last time. And so I know for parents it's tough, but kids, I'm excited for you. And I just wanted to share a quick little illustration that maybe will make some sense for where we're going to head, not just today, but for the rest of the month. But when I was young, my dad got me and my brothers together, and he pulled out these marbles. He pulled out marbles. Pulled out all these different bag of marbles, and he kind of we saw what they were, and we're kind of looking at them, and they're all sitting there, and there's all different colors and different things. Like there's the red one and the blue one and the gray one, and all these colors. And then there's these big ones, these ones that were bigger than the other ones. And then he took out a piece of tape. Or he took out a roll of tape and he started to tape off this circle. It wasn't a good circle because you can't make tape do a circle very well. But he makes this circle on the floor. And he takes all the marbles and he dumps them into the middle of the thing. And he says, okay, grab a big one. And so we grabbed one of the big ones. And he showed us how to play marbles. If you've never played marbles before, it's very simple. There's all the marbles in the middle. And you take the big one and you have to put it in your thumb and your finger just right. And you flick it at the marbles. And whatever marbles go outside the circle, you get to keep them. Those are for keeps. And me and my brothers, we played this, and we were having fun. And I remember the moment, I remember the feeling that I had when that one marble, that really cool one, jumped out of the circle, and I got to keep it. It was mine. And I was young, and it's not a big thing, but in the moment, it's a marble. I won it. I got it. And then there was these other moments when I really wanted that red one, but my brother knocked it out on his turn. Or my other brother knocked out the other one that I wanted. And I remember that feeling of like, something inside me was like, just frustration, like, I want that. And I was thinking about that whole scenario for a minute because I don't know if my dad knew this, but he wasn't just teaching us a game, he was actually teaching us something about life. He was teaching us about how life is and how things are and how we can have these moments that are amazing and these other moments that are not so great. And so I remember thinking about that, especially as I was thinking about this message. And it started to kind of catch with me that this is kind of how growing up works. That there's these high moments, these really high moments, these highlights in our lives. And then there's these other ones that aren't so great. So if you look at this little timeline up there, you see all these little dots and all these moments in life. This is your life. And you're going to have these moments where there's some great things that happen, the highlights of your life. Things like you get to go to that class with the favorite teacher, or you remember those moments with that one teacher that was just cool. Or it might be that you have these memories of things you did with your best friend. It might be other memories of things that happened. Maybe it was a family trip that you all took, that one trip that just made a difference. You will never forget those moments. It could be something even more than that. It could be moments of when you made your first commitment to let Jesus change your life forever. It could be the moment when your mom or your dad or that leader at church baptized you. There could be significant moments. It could be other things that maybe you just sit and it just makes you smile, makes you remember. It could be graduation. Finally, I'm done with that stage of my life and I'm just ready to get out of the house. It could be the moment when you get your first job and you're out on your own and you have your first apartment. There's so many things in our lives that are these highlights, but there's also moments that are kind of low. If you notice, there's some that are low, and sometimes it can feel like it's flipped around. I think there's one that flips it, right? Yeah. Go to the next one. Yeah, there we go. It could be that it feels like a low moment in your life. And it feels like maybe there's more low moments than high moments. It could be the time when your parents separated or got a divorce. Or maybe a loved one passed away. Maybe it's you lost a job. You see, no matter where we're at in our stage of life, we could be adults and still having these high and low moments. We could still be learning from them. Maybe it's when your best friend wasn't your best friend anymore. Or maybe it's when your kids move away. I have these pictures in our house. I took these pictures of the girls when they were growing up. There's one moment when they were all kind of facing a lake, and I took a picture, and they were all standing in birth order, but also size order, so it was kind of cool. And so I thought, oh, that's a cool picture. And I did it when they were really young. I think Rachel was like 6 or 7 or something like that. I can't remember. And so we kind of did this thing where we were always taking these pictures of them. Wherever we went, if we wanted to capture that memory, we'd have them stand in that order, and they hated it every time. And they would stand there, and we'd take the picture and then be done. And we'd go to Disneyland, or we'd be riding horses or whatever it was. And then when Rachel graduated, I had this brilliant idea. Hey, Rachel, we're going to all stand out in front of the house. You four stand in front of the house, but you stand about like 20 feet in front of your sisters. And I wasn't thinking anything. I thought, well, this is going to be kind of cool. But in that moment, I remember the feeling of she's leaving. And I thought, man, those moments, I started thinking of all the highlights. It was a low moment, but that low moment revealed the highlights, right? Sometimes it can feel like our low moments are outnumbering the high moments. But here's the thing about those. It's kind of like playing marbles. There's moments when you get it, and moments when you feel like you're losing it. And those moments are meant, in the game of marbles, there's a phrase called for keeps. When they first started playing it, the whole idea is this was your collection of marbles. This is what you had. And if you decided to play against somebody else, you were playing to take their marbles, and they were playing to take your marbles, and you got to keep them. And in a weird way, all of these memories, all these moments, high moments, low moments, are kind of like those marbles. And in another way, none of those marbles, when we were playing the game, were really our marbles. They were my dad's marbles. And he's standing there watching us, and he's smiling, and he's enjoying the moment, seeing his sons play together. And all the while, he didn't know what was going on in my heart. Is I was getting frustrated because I wasn't getting the marbles I wanted, but I was happy I was getting the marbles, and all this turmoil is going on, and the whole time he's just watching like, this is great. You see, in life, all those moments that we capture, high moments, low moments, they're not ours. They're ultimately God's moments. There is nothing that happens in this life that is going to catch God by surprise. There's nothing that the devil can do that God does not know is going to happen beforehand. It's not like the devil surprises God. It's not like the choice you make is going to surprise God. It's not like the mistakes that we're going to make, those high moments or low moments are going to be, God goes, wow, I didn't expect that. That's not how it works. God has got it. And so I wanted to take us to a passage and I'm glad Ricky brought this one up. We're going to look at a passage in Jeremiah. And what happens with this oftentimes is it's a really great passage for this time of year, but the problem is it is probably the most misunderstood and misused passage of the Bible that gets overused and misused and misunderstood time and time again because we don't understand what God is really saying in it. We take this and we personalize it too quickly. And so I want us to take a look at it from a godly perspective, from God's perspective, because just like that game of marbles that I was playing with my brothers, I thought this was all for me. But my dad was going, no, there's so much bigger than that. If you could just see what's going on from my perspective, you would see how amazing it is. So Jeremiah chapter 29. Jeremiah chapter 29, I want to show you verse 11. It says this, it's up on the screen. For I know the plans I have for you. This is a Lord's declaration. Plans for your well-being, not for disaster, to give you a future and a hope. The first question that comes to mind is, would you like to know what God's plan for you is? And most people would say, absolutely. I want to know what God's plan is for me. I would love to know what God has planned for me. And so the writer of this, Jeremiah, he is explaining some things to these people because in a way, what he's trying to help them understand is that God is in all of those moments, and he's in control of all those moments, and he knows what's going to happen in all those moments. And so for us as people going through those moments, we need to take them for keeps. We need to take them in and just enjoy the moment. I watched yesterday, I got an opportunity to umpire the Little League baseball, softball games and stuff. And I watched parents celebrate, and I watched parents not celebrate because they lost. And I watched coaches celebrate and kids cry. And what happened to me was a little different than what was going on with all the parents. I remember those wins and losses with my own kids. And what went through my mind is, parents, if you could just capture this moment, if you could just hold on to this moment, you don't realize what a big deal this is. It's not so bad that they lost. It's that they are learning how to deal with disappointment in life. It's not so much that they won. It's that they are learning what it means to be respectful and honorable and to work hard and try to achieve something. And so when Jeremiah writes this, he wants the people of Israel to kind of be doing the same thing, to understand what God is doing in the moment. First of all, the one critical concept that we need to catch on into this verse is that this is not to you. It's not to you and I. It wasn't written so that you and I could go, well, this is just for me. God has my plan. And yes, he does. We'll get into that in a second. But we got to understand where it's coming from. Let's kind of hit some context for a minute. In this passage, the people of Israel are in captivity in Babylon. They are slaves. It's not a good situation. And so God is talking to Jeremiah, and God tells Jeremiah, tell the people this, that I know the plans I have for them, plans for them to prosper. What we don't know about the story is the people that heard this for the first time never got out of slavery. They died as slaves. So if this was directed to them, do you think they would take it and go, well, if this is God's plan for me just to die in slavery, this is terrible. This isn't right. I don't even know if God loves me. You see what happens when we try to take something that is not biblically true and apply it. Sometimes we can twist it into making it about us. And this passage has nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with God. Who's the main person in this whole thing? God's saying, I know the plans I have for you. I know what those plans are. Plans for you to prosper. Plans for, not for disaster, but to change your life forever. God's plans may be vastly different than my plans. His plans for us, seniors, his plans for you as you graduate might be very different than your plans right now. And I guarantee you, your plans are going to change. It just happens. That's how life is. But those plans never take God by surprise. He's always doing something behind the scenes. And so what he's trying to convey to them, kind of like the game of marbles, is it's not about wins and losses. It's about capturing each moment and remembering who God is, that he's got a plan. Romans 8:28 says this. We know that all things work together for the good of those who love God, who are called according to his purpose. Every single one of us, no matter our age, no matter our stage of life, we are called to live to his purpose. And he will work everything together for our good. It may not feel like that moment is for our good. We might feel like we're losing our marbles. But at the same time, God, he hasn't lost a thing. It's still his. He's got it, and he's going to work everything together. The second thing, though, is this, kind of tying into that. While that passage isn't to you, it is for you, because there's a promise in that verse. It's a promise that sometimes we miss out on. While it's not directed to you, it was directed to a group of people who are going through one of the worst, most difficult times of their life. The promise was for them, and it is also for us, because God's promises in the Bible work that way. It's not just for one group of people, it's for anyone who decides to follow him. And so in this sense, this passage is really for us. Ultimately, God's promise is for hope. It's for good. It's for the right things to happen in our lives. It's for us to experience true hope. We have to understand that God is always for us. He always wants what's best for us. And so when he says, I know the plans I have for you, plans for you to prosper, plans for you to succeed, it may not look the way the world says prosperous and success looks like. I've got a bigger story in mind. I've got something bigger in mind. When my dad pulled out those marbles for the first time, the goal was not for us to take the marbles. The goal was for us three boys to have a fun moment together, to enjoy life together, to figure out how to work together, because when we get older, we need to have some of these memories. Because there's going to be difficult times in our lives, and we need to come back to those moments and remember what we are called to do as a family, to love each other, to care for each other, to enjoy each other. You see, everything that happens in life is for his glory and for our good. Everything that happens in life is for his glory first and foremost. God is worthy to be glorified in everything that happens. And second of all, it's for our good. May not be what we want, but it's for our good. Isaiah 41:10 says this: Do not fear, I am with you. Do not be afraid, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, I will help you, I will hold on to you with my righteous right hand. It's all about God. He's the one that's got it. He's the one that is holding on. And so the concept of Jeremiah 29:11 is this: it's really a blessing. The blessing is that God is for us and he's with us no matter what happens. No matter what comes next, he is for us. He is with us. You see, in the Bible, when it talked about blessing, it wasn't so that we would have riches or that life would be easy. When the worst things in your life are happening, the blessing isn't that you're going to be removed from it. The blessing is that you recognize that God is with you through it. That's the blessing. And so when Jeremiah reveals this to the people of Israel, and they are in bondage for many, many more years, and many of them die in slavery, what they were called to remember and what they would have been challenged to remember is that God, he's with them. And while whatever they're going through may not feel great, they were called to recognize that God is with them. You see, when my brothers and I were playing marbles, we forgot that Dad was watching us because we got wrapped up into the game, into the moment, into life. And we forgot that our dad was right there with us. The challenge of Jeremiah 29:11 is that never forget that God is with you through whatever happens. So if you want to experience the blessing of God's plan and his promise, there's two things that God goes on to share with the people of Israel. If you want to figure out what God's plan is for you, first of all, recognize that he's with you. He's with you through it all. And if you want to be able to recognize that, there's really two very simple things that he calls all of us to do to recognize that he's with us. If I had taken a moment to recognize that my dad was with me, and now I am, but back then I didn't. I was young and I was trying to figure the game out, and I was worried about losing marbles and gaining marbles and getting all. But if I had taken a moment to recognize and see the way that my dad was seeing things, how different that moment would have been. And so God, knowing that we will struggle with understanding that he's with us, he knows that we are going to be distracted by life and we're going to lose our perspective. We're going to forget that he's with us and we're going to feel like he's not there because we're losing our marbles. Jeremiah 29, verse 12. So you will call to me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you search for me with all of your heart. I will be found by you. Two things. First of all, pray. Pray to God. Seniors, as you are getting ready to go into the next phase, I would encourage you to take this summer to pray, 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 pray. But prayer is not intended for you to try to change God's plans. Prayer is intended to align your heart with God's heart. Prayer is an intent to not force God to do something you want him to do. God, just give me that Ferrari. I really wanted a Ferrari when I was growing up. Magnum PI was cool. I never got a Ferrari. Does that mean that God didn't love me? No. Did that mean that my prayer was stupid? There's no stupid prayers, but it's a little selfish. You know what was my good? Learning that God's plan for me was not for me to have a Ferrari. It was for me to trust God with every moment of my life, and that he's not always going to give me what I want, but he's always going to give me what's good for me. It would be years later when I was driving a tow truck for a little bit that I realized that Ferraris are terrible cars to own. They break down all the time, and they're super expensive to fix, and they're super expensive to get insurance on. All the things that I didn't think about, God knew the plan. He said, yeah, you're going to be a pastor. You can't afford a Ferrari. You're fine. But see, prayer is intended to align our hearts with God and what his plans and his wants are for us, not for us to try to get God to agree to our wants and our plans. The second thing is seek God. Seek God. And I'll tell you this is the most important thing as seniors for you guys to understand, is that if you're not around people who are seeking God, you're going to stop seeking God. It's not hard. It's not rocket science. It's very simple. I've seen it time and time again. The kids who have graduated high school and have gone on to live their own lives, and I still follow them, and I still hear from them, and I still check in with them on Instagram and Facebook and text messages and everything else. Technology's great. But the kids who have stopped seeking God and have gotten around people who are no longer seeking God have stopped seeking God. They've just stopped. And they can't figure out why their life is a mess. And they can't figure out why life isn't working out. And they can't figure out why God doesn't seem to be showing up. And so they don't go to church. And they don't get around people who are seeking God. And they're around people who are not seeking God. They're seeking their selfishness. And they wonder why they're becoming selfish. And why their life is a mess. And so they go to therapists and they go to psychologists and they go to these people that are supposed to help them. And many of them need that. But what happens is they go to these people who are not helping them seek God. They're helping them seek their own feelings and emotions and what do you feel like you should be? What do you feel like you should do? And when those individuals that are influencing us are not seeking God, we stop seeking God. It's just the way it works. So seek God. Get around people who want to seek God. Look for those moments. Remember those moments. Capture those moments when God showed up. In the Bible, there's this really cool thing that happens that God tells the people of Israel that whenever something big happens, like he parts the Red Sea, to make these standing stones, these big, huge rock structures, and so that when they walk by them and when their kids walk by them and when their grandkids and their great-grandkids walk by them, they could remember the story of when God showed up at the Red Sea. Each of those highlights and each of those high moments when God showed up, remember those, capture those, focus on those, seek God. And when you do, you will see what God wants. So we're going to end with something. We're going to pray for the seniors. We're going to be praying for the kids that are graduating high school. And we don't know what they're going to do next. Some of them are going to go to college. Some of them are going to get jobs. Some of them are going to start a family soon. Some of them are going to go into the next phase of their life. And we don't know what that looks like. We are not sure, but we do know the one who knows that plan. And it's been his plan all along. And it may not be an easy road, but God promises that if you pray and you seek, you will find.